You're listening to 640 AM KTIB Thibodaux, Homa. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our upcoming special, we would like to have a moment of silence for the 6 Louisiana troops that were recently lost in Iraq combat. Followed by the moment of silence, we will have our national anthem. You're listening to 640 AM KTIB, Thibodaux, Homa. This is William Taylor, and welcome to our special Saints, Squirrels, and Salutations, a tribute to Buddy Diliberto, who, of course, worked in the New Orleans media all of his life, and, of course, a proud employee of the Saints radio network. Well, today, folks, we got a bunch of sound bites from Buddy's TV and radio career that we'd like to play for you, and hopefully a lot of it will put a smile on your face. So let's get right to it. The first 6 clips we're going to air comes from a sit-down interview Buddy did back in December of 1993 with Ed Clancy. The first segment we have is entitled Buddy D the Lawyer. So let's listen.
I did attend one semester of law school because I for a while thought I wanted to be a lawyer because I didn't know what I wanted to be. So consequently, your parents, they were, musician, lawyer, this, that, So, but after one semester in law school, I really didn't like it. So I decided to continue the journalism end of it.
Mm-hmm. Gee, Judge Diliberto. That would have been interesting.
Okay, next sound bite. Buddy D talks about his days at the Times-Picayune.
Which paper did you get on?
Times-Picayune.
Times-Picayune?
Right.
Okay.
My dad had worked all his life there in advertising at the Times-Picayune, and so when I started after Jesuit, when I started going to Loyola, I started as a copy boy. Eventually, I got into the sports department, and 2 years prior to going into television, I was the lead sports columnist for the Times-Picayune. Bill Keefe was the sports editor that he had fallen into ill health, and so consequently I was doing what Peter Finney does now. At the time, they had two separates. The State was the afternoon paper,
right,
and the Times-Picayune was the morning paper, and I was, for the last 2 years, prior to going into television, I was the daily sports columnist for the Times-Picayune.
All right.
Okay, coming up next is a real interesting piece. We call it Buddy D the War Hero.
When I was working for Stars and Stripes when we were in Korea, the big show at the time was the Edward R. Murrow See It Now show, which is, the counterpart like 60 Minutes now. And Lou Shafi, a correspondent, longtime correspondent for CBS, was sent over to Korea to talk to frontline soldiers about who they were going to vote for in the presidential election between Eisenhower and Stevenson, absentee. And so Stars and Stripes sent me up to do a story on them doing the story, you know. And so consequently, anyway, we ended up with a heavy mortar platoon that had been online for a couple of months, but had never received any enemy rounds in. And that was the idea, because they didn't want any television equipment damaged or anything like that. And at that time, the Korean War had become a war of daytime, I mean, a nighttime war. In the daytime, there was almost never anything. We got up there, and the heavy mortar platoon guys were all sunbathing and relaxed and everything, see. So, you know, Shoppy got them all together, about 35 of them, and started doing these interviews about who they were going to vote for, absentee in the presidential election, et cetera, et cetera. And then that was done, and he says, you know, I'd like to get some firing background, you know, like, so I can say, this is Lou Shoppy reporting from the front lines in Korea, while you hear boom, 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 you know. And so I'm enjoying it just as a spectator, you know, watching it to write the story. I didn't know, but they did find something to fire at. It really was nothing, but they found something they wanted to fire at, and they gave him battery fire for about 4 or 5 minutes while he was doing his stand-ups. And in the meantime, apparently the Chinese, of course, from the trajectory, can tell, and then they dropped 3 or 4 mortar rounds in on top of everybody. 34 of us were wounded. Nobody was killed, but 34 of us were wounded.
Wow. Just because he needed sound effects for his
effects for his stand-up.
Now Buddy D talks about his moving over from the newspaper business to television.
Well, a guy named Doug Ellison was the general manager of Channel 8 at the time, which was Channel 12, and it became Channel 8, you know, from a number standpoint. And he had been in town about 9 months, and Hap Claudia, he was the sports director of WWL at the time, and not being new to the town, being new to the town, he couldn't figure how Hap had all the ratings he had with his elocution and everything like that. So Dave Dixon was trying to get a professional football franchise here for the city at the time and promoting preseason games. So he was making the rounds of all the television stations to ask for the cooperation of the management and everything, you know, and promoting the preseason game. And in that conversation, Ellison asked him, you know, I can't see how this guy, Glaudy's getting all the ratings. And then Dixon explained that Glaudy used to be a very fine sports editor of the New Orleans Item, and so consequently anybody from town were accustomed to who he was and what he stood for, and they knew he was a journalist from his columns, and it was well respected. So the fact that he went on into television, and the fact that he didn't sound great as far as the elocution, and didn't make any difference, it's what he said that interested him. So he said, well, is anybody else like that in town? And so Dave told him about me. And so the contact was made, and I went over there and did an audition tape. And after looking at it, I decided to look like Benito Mussolini with a hangover. So I said, well, you know, I got no future there. So I left. And a couple of weeks later, they got me back and said they could work with me on everything, and started a 24-year career.
Next, Buddy D talks about how sometimes he's been known to mispronounce a word or two.
Being the greatest at elocution, did you ever get frustrated on the air or doing a broadcast, doing words you couldn't name, especially
Not
names?
really, because, you know, Hap preceded
Those tennis
me.
players would kill you.
Oh, you know. I'd give him an initial, you know, and say, certainly Martina Navratilova, you learn to say simply because she became so good, you know.
Yeah.
But if it was just somebody with a name like that, you know, I'd say Martina, you know, a big T, you know, or something like that.
You'd work around it.
And now Buddy talks about the infamous Bagheads of 1980.
The baghead thing. Now, you started that...
1980, the year they were 1-15. What happened on that, Ed, I had covered the Saints in the you know, from its beginning, and the Mecum years was so bad, and this was, you know, the absolute bottom of the pit. And I owned a lounge in Metairie at the time, and it was 4 weeks into the season or 5 weeks into the season, and they were 0-5. And so one night after the Sunday night show, I stopped by at my lounge, and some of the regular customers were still there, and I was bemoaning the fact that it's getting more and more challenging to cover the Saints and not be repetitious, because I've already pinpointed everything that's wrong, where the problem is, and I've dressed it up and sang it in different ways. I said, but it's becoming even more challenging. And just about that time, the bartender had the TV on, and the unknown comic was on the air with the bag on his head. He said, if I was you, he said, every time you talk about them bumps, I'd wear a bag. And so that kind of clicked in, and that started it. But I thought it would only be for a couple of weeks. When I started it, I said I'd do it until they won a game. Well, they went 8 more weeks before they won a game.
And you did your sportscast every night?
Anytime I talked about the Saints, whether it was on the daily sportscast or our Monday night show from the press box leading into Monday Night Football.
All right. So you would do the regular sports, and then when you talked about the Saints, you
put the bag ahead, and then, of course, on Monday Night Football, the show leading to Monday Night Football, you wore the bag most of the week.
Did you put it on, like, on camera, or did you wait till they were off camera and put it on, or what?
Usually in between commercial breaks,
okay.
you know, and something like that.
And what was the reaction from the Saints front office?
For the Saints front office, the players, you know. I mean,
or anybody,
Yeah, I mean, it was negative, and I guarantee if I was on the other side of the ball, I'd be negative, too. But it had gotten that bad. The situation had gotten that bad with that ownership.
And then the fans started wearing them in the stands, right?
Oh, yeah. They had games with as many as a couple of thousand fans had them on.
All right, here's a couple of clips from Buddy's TV career at Channel 6. First, from late November of 1985, when Bum Phillips resigned as Saints head coach.
I've resigned as the head football coach and general manager of the New Orleans Saints. And the decision was mine and mine alone. My job here was to win football games. And my job here was to provide a winning season. Didn't do that.
With that statement, Bum walked away from the final 3 years on a contract worth about $1.5 million.
He walked away from it. I bought his house and moving him back to Houston. And then he's walked away. Now, he's got some deferred compensation coming and things like that, but he null and void his contract.
Benson selected Bum's son, Wade Phillips, the defensive coordinator of the team, as interim head coach for the remaining 4 games of the season. With Bum and President Eddie Jones gone, Benson will begin a search immediately for 3 new men, a president, a general manager, and a head coach. And Benson has set a timetable for himself.
By the end of January, Buddy, I'd like to have it all done, but I don't know if that's possible. And this search has to be so accurate and that we to make the right decision, because we can't wait another 5 years. We got to make the right decision so we go forward, and that decision has to be the president and the coach. As I said, I'd be willing to stay on longer if we found a coach first. I'd say that it's absolutely necessary that we have a coach by the end of January.
Benson said he has some people in and out of football whom he trusts and will take advice from them over the next few weeks. For News Center 6, this is Buddy Diliberto.
Okay, the next clip you'll hear from Buddy's TV career is from 1987. He went on the road at Pittsburgh. This was the game the Saints won to clinch their first ever winning season. And listen to Dave Waymer, how emotional he got in the locker room after the win.
Had one more shot from the 11, but Dave Waymer stepped in front of a Malone pass at the goal line, and suddenly the Saints were 8-3, assured of a winning season for the first time, and 8-year veteran Waymer was overcome with emotion.
Had pretty good coverage on the guy. God, excuse me, man. It's been a long time.
You're a little overcome by the fact that you finally have a winning season.
Yeah, this is it. This is it.
Good feeling?
Yeah. This team deserves it, too.
The tension of the final minutes even had Jim Morris' stomach turning.
It gave me a lot of things, buddy. More than a nervous stomach. Give me a lot of gray hairs, a nervous stomach. You know, it's tense on that sideline. It's tense, and but hey.
Early in the fourth quarter, Joe Colbrand gave the Saints a chance at the winning touchdown when on a punt. He jarred the ball loose from Rod Woodson, and Waymer recovered at the Pittsburgh 21.
Jim Marciano really fired me up on the sideline, and I knew I had to do something, block a punt, or it was, I think I hit him pretty well. I haven't seen the play or nothing, but he didn't see me, and I came around one of our guys, and then I just hit him. I didn't know the ball was out or anything.
2 plays later, Bobby Hebert put the Saints ahead to stay with a picture throw to Eric Martin for 19 yards and a 17-14 lead.
Martin in the corner of the end zone came clean and made the reception.
I wasn't able to move around like I wanted to maybe towards the end of the game. My knee was stiffened up a little bit, and Eric just ran a great route, and I was able to get it to him on the corner.
The goal line stand was yet to come, and what was Bobby doing then?
I definitely was praying at the end, you know, that God would let us win this football game. I know a lot of times I don't like to do that because there might be other guys on other teams praying the same prayer, but that was a desire in my heart for us to win this game, and I really believe that God honored that.
Yeah! Woo! The Saints proved beyond a doubt they're a playoff team, making the big plays when they count it most. They're ensured the first ever winning season from Three River Stadium in Pittsburgh. Buddy Diliberto for Sports Center 6.
Well, of course, Buddy D had a lot of friends all over southeast Louisiana, all over the country for that matter, and it was very hard deciding who to interview about the Buddy D that we knew on the air and off the air. So we talked to two folks that some of you are very familiar with. The first is a young lady who worked in the same office complex with Buddy, though at an FM station owned by the same parent company WWL owned. This is Athena, and this is an interesting perspective on how an out-of-towner looked at Buddy D and how the generation gap really didn't exist when it come to understanding what Buddy was trying to convey.
Oh, my God. When I first heard him, my husband hated him and the way he spoke. And I said, you know what? Don't listen to how he talks. Listen to what he's saying. And the way he was calling the listeners squirrels, and he was so... I don't know, William, there was something about Buddy D that everybody loved. Obviously, he's a character, but he was smart, and there was just something about him that I really loved. So I started listening to him, and then I hardly ever saw him because I was doing mornings at the time. And then once I started doing afternoons with him, actually I met him at a children's radiothon, and I went up to him and I said, Buddy, I've always wanted to meet you, and I have a big crush on Coach Jim Haslett, and we just started joking around about Coach Jim and the players, and he said, anytime you want to ask me about a player, just come up to me. But I never saw him, William. But then we got switched to afternoons, like 2 months later, and I started running into him in the hallways, and his office was next to me, and I said, Buddy, why don't you come on our show with us? And he used to do updates with us. Anytime I had a question for any player, he would tell me, and the last time I ran into him was, well, it was probably about 2 weeks ago, and it was right before the Sugar Bowl. And I said, Buddy, are you going to the Sugar Bowl? And he was going to have me go with him, but I had stuff to do that night, and I wish I did go with him to the press box, because that would have been really cool. And that was the last time I saw him, William.
Wow. Now, like I said, he was a lot of people who didn't get a chance to meet him in person, only heard him on the air, may not realize how much of an endearing figure he was to everyone. It was very evident, sadly, of course, after he passed away, many hours on the radio, people, of course, spoke about him. And I take it now that, the fact that he's not with us anymore, it just probably leaves, well, like a lot of us, leaves a huge void with you.
It does. And who would ever, okay, now Buddy D could never be replaced, but who is good enough to replace him? And there's no one like him.
Very true. And
his family, oh God, William, I was at the week the other night, and I wanted to pay my respects to him because he really did. I mean, he offered me some great advice, and I love the guy. And when I met his wife and his daughter, they said, oh, Buddy liked you. He got a kick out of you asking him advice, and he ate it up. And they listened to me and with him on our show, and that was so flattering knowing he got a kick out of me because I love the guy,
Yeah, and it's interesting because here was Buddy, 73 years old, and yet he would come with you on an FM station mainly aimed at young people, but yet everybody seemed to respond to him.
Everyone. I think no matter, I don't know, William, I think you and I are basically the same age, so I think anyone from 18 to 80 loved him. I mean, don't you agree?
Well, no, I think you should have done, and I really didn't think about this since I didn't know you at the time. Wouldn't it have been so funny to get Buddy on the air with you and make him say, now here comes Whipplestack?
That would have been funny. Well, you know what? One time we had this Christmas wrap-off contest, and we were just having some fun and actually rapping, like yo-yo-yo rapping.
Uh-huh.
Not Christmas wrapping presents.
Okay.
So, I said, why don't we get Buddy to come in here and do a rap? And I wish to God that we did because that would have been hilarious.
Well, I don't know if you know this. Buddy actually did rap on the radio 5 years ago.
He did not.
What happened was this, and I apologize. I apologize to all the listeners because my audio tape got destroyed in a flood.
Oh, no.
But after the NFL draft, for those people who don't know the story, that was the year the Saints drafted Ricky Williams. And he was a very high draft prospect at the time at running back. And, well, everybody, when we heard the Saints are getting Ricky Williams, the crowd at the WWL Draft Festival went nuts.
Right.
Well, the next day, Buddy and draft analyst Mike Detillier and Kenny Wilkerson were going to meet not just Ricky, but his agent at the time, Master P. And, of course, Master P is not just a sports agent or part of a sports agency. He also has been a rap mogul for a long time.
Right. I'm thinking like Public Enemy or something.
Right.
Flavor Flav, who knows?
Right. So what happened was somebody at WWL gave Buddy some lyrics from one of Master P's songs. And all of a sudden, and they kept this tape for a long time, Buddy starts singing, holla if you hear me.
No way. Holla if you hear me.
Right. And so Buddy the rap artist, in fact, Master P almost considered trying to sign him to do a single.
Oh, that would have been fun. I heard Buddy sing once. Sorry, my throat's so dry. I heard him sing once, and it was like a Christmas carol or something.
Yes, he's done those as well. But I take it overall, though, all the hilarity and all the other things the information he's brought, I take it without a doubt. No matter where you may go in your radio career, he's definitely always going to have a place for you.
I just love him. I really do. Long live Buddy D up in heaven. He'll always be looking down on us, William.
Right now, we're in the process of trying to get through to the Old City Ice House, where we're going to be in contact in just a moment with Dr. Momus Alexander Morgus, better known, of course, as Morgus the Magnificent, and we'll see if my assistant was able to get through. Dr. Morgus, are you there?
Yeah. Hello. William, is that you?
Yes, sir, it is. How are you this evening?
Okay, Chopsley, get away from here. Chopsley, move along. Yes, Willie, I knew you'd be calling here because, everybody's been talking about my old friend Buddy, and I'm just surprised as everybody else. I take care of a lot of these people, and Buddy was one of my close friends, of course. He relied on me for a lot of things, and especially when he got in trouble with the Saints, and I tried to help out many times.
Oh, very much so. Now, of course, you were a regular guest on many of Buddy's radio shows as well as television as well. Are there any memories of Buddy Diliberto that seem to stand out in your mind?
Well, there's so many, every time I did things with Buddy. A lot of things had to do with the Saints because Buddy was always in trouble there trying to get the team up to some kind of a Super Bowl class. But I told him unless I was over there and then maybe the head of sports medicine, that the team will never make it here. And Buddy said, okay, then we're going to try to get Morgus to be the vice president in charge of sports medicine. And, of course, it never happened. Benson wouldn't answer my phone calls, and that never happened. But, and, of course, I really loved the Saints. I was like Buddy. Buddy loved the Saints. He lived the Saints. In fact, you know something? Buddy is with the Saints right now, upstairs, way up there. There's Saints up there,
Oh, exactly. And
they're real Saints up there.
Very much so. Very well-deserved place for him. And, I think you bring out an excellent point. A lot of people seem to focus maybe too much on the criticism, but Buddy, in his heart, wanted this team to succeed more than anything. And, of course, I know you've always felt the same way. And
I felt a lot of ways about the Saints. We really have a great football team here. But I always said it's only the other teams that come in here and cause the trouble.
I think that's exactly right.
This is the real. If you want the real answer, I could give you a Morgusian solution to a lot of problems over there at that Saints headquarters there. But like Louis XIV, let's not lose our heads over this thing. It's a team that's let's put it this way: it's a young team that's having trouble working its way up. But I think next year might be the big year.
Yeah, I think that and likely will be the next year because now we got a good guardian angel looking out for him.
I think you hit on something there. You really did. Buddy was over. He used to do these programs over at the different casinos. He tried to even help me out personally. He knew that we're struggling here. We don't take money from from any of these foundations or the government. We will not be controlled by these people. So he wanted me to come over to one of the casinos and gamble. He said, look, I think I can give you some tips and you'll win a lot of money. I said, Buddy, I couldn't do that. You know, you got to remember the Morgusian law of chance. He said, look, you've got a 50-50 chance. And I said, Buddy, you know, when you've got a 50-50 chance at something, there's a 95% chance you won't win. He believed me. And he said, you know what, I'll never bet because you told me that.
That sounds like a good philosophy to live by. And, of course, you know, when you were on many of Buddy's programs, a lot of solid suggestions were brought out to help the team. And, of course, a couple that come to my mind was the time he asked if you could get the better body parts of the three quarterbacks they had at the time, which I believe was Bobby Hebert, Steve Walsh, and Mike Buck, to try to create a super quarterback that could carry the team to the Super Bowl in the early 90s.
Well, you know, that's Buddy trying to be a little humorous, you know. Buddy didn't have to try to be humorous. He was a funny guy to begin with, you know. He didn't take himself that seriously. And that was a crazy idea, and he called me for that, and I went along with it. You know, you know, but that one day they'll do things like that. You know, they'll say, hey, I don't know whether you saw one of my experiments, but we were able to take the talent from different people and emerge it into my personality.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite a success. You know, so this is something that's foreseeably possible, especially with scientific knowledge that we're putting out lately, and that's what I'm hopefully working on right now. And you know, one day I'd like to make a special tribute to Buddy because we did have a lot of great times. You know what? We had over 40 years of Morgusian science, and Buddy was right there, many times. Many times.
And, of course, throughout, you know, it's always safe to say any time in life, it's always good to have friends that'll stay with you a long time, support you through thick and thin. And Dr. Morgus, it definitely sounds like Buddy Diliberto was one of those friends.
He absolutely was, and he always will be. I'll always consider him there. And just like I talk to the higher order, I talk to Buddy and let him know he's watching down here tonight.
Well, Dr. Morgus, this has been wonderful having you on. I know you're very busy at the Old City Ice House. And once again, all of us at KTIB are very thankful you were able to take some time out of your busy schedule to pay tribute to such a kind gentleman in Buddy Diliberto.
Well, it's my pleasure, and good wishes to all your listeners out there.
You're listening to 640 AM KTIB. This is William Taylor as we air our tribute to Buddy Diliberto entitled Saints, Squirrels, and Salutations. Well, coming up, you're going to hear the introduction to Buddy Diliberto's return to television in August of 1994. The series was called Hey Buddy D, and it was put on by WNOL Channel 38 out of New Orleans. And you'll hear announcer Jim Rumsfeld talk about Buddy's life. And then you'll hear the voice of Allie Gifford, and shortly after that, the voice of Steve Stonebreaker, and then one of Buddy's famous Barks commercials.
Beginning, he was Bernard Severio Diliberto Jr., soon just Buddy, and from the beginning, there was sports.
As a child, I was always very interested in sports. When I could read and the morning paper would come every day, I'd always run for the sports page right away and read it from front to back.
But while most boys are either playing sports or watching sports, Buddy also wanted to write about them. And write he ultimately did, for over a decade at the Times-Picayune.
If you'd ask Buddy Diliberto what he does for a living, he would tell you he's a writer. That's what Buddy Diliberto is. He's a writer. He's a thinker.
Like offensive linemen, football writers only get noticed when they muck up. So why would Buddy forsake the cozy anonymity of the sports page for the unblinking eye of the TV camera?
In a lot of travel to the Times-Picayune and other cities covering games and things, I did get to see a lot of cross-section of sportscasts on television. And I said, gee, you know, I don't know if I can talk like that, but I said, I think I have more knowledge than that.
Buddy's TV career commenced with the birth of New Orleans' most beloved problem child, the Saints. From the jump, Buddy was painstakingly honest in his assessment of the expansion team, and his frankness soon had a direct impact on his means of travel to away games.
Fred Williams, who was a Meekum Gopher, he called me and told me, he says, hey, I got good news for you. You're off the plane again for life plus 10 years. And he said, the extra 10 is just in case you're the second Lazarus. He said, you're still off for 10 years if you come back to life after you die.
The Meekum era ended, and with it, Buddy's banishment from the team plane. but not before a bet with a Saints legend that would prove Buddy couldn't walk on water.
Buddy bet the Saints would not win more than 2 football games that season under J.D. Roberts. And I felt as though if they had no coach at all, they could have won 2 games. It was no great year, but they did win 4 games. The only disappointment when he lost that bet and had to go in the pool was that we had scheduled it at Christmas time at the conclusion of the season. It was just too warm in New Orleans, so they went down and loaded the pool with 50-pound blocks of ice just because it wasn't cold enough.
The Saints may have kept him out of the air, but not off the airwaves. And although Buddy left TV in 1991, it was to master a new challenge, hosting one of the most popular sports shows in the South on radio. So, why does he endure?
Having grown up in New Orleans, having gone to Jesuit High School, having gone to Loyola, having grown up on the streets of New Orleans and become part of the scene here, he knows how we think down here.
True enough, but there's something else, something even more universal.
When they clinched their first playoff berth, it was against Tampa Bay. First thing you know, my eyes got misty. And I had to talk to myself. I said, man, what are you doing? You're going to start bawling here? That's ridiculous.
Not ridiculous at all. Buddy Diliberto endures because at heart, he's like you and me. He's a fan. Hey, Buddy D, welcome back to TV. Live from the foot of Canal Street, it's Hey, Buddy D. When it comes to talking football, Buddy D's the one.
You're on the air, Bob.
Always got an opinion.
Now you got it, baby.
He may be hard to understand.
What's that supposed to mean?
Tonight, Buddy D talks to NFL analyst Mike Detillier and sports reporter Vince Marinella. Ken Trahan interviews Jim Miller about the salary cap, and Charlie Min reports on the new quarterback lineup. Plus, your calls from home and more tonight on Hey, Buddy D.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'd love to see the Saints go to the Super Bowl. I could get more tickets. Better bring out the straight jackets. We got a full moon tonight. Now I think I'm going to take a swig of Bach's. If you thought anything else was in there but Bach's, you were wrong. You know, when I first started drinking Bach's over 50 years ago, they were in bottles. Some of the bottles were a little bigger than this. But, hey, for 50 years I've been drinking the same soft drink. And would I stick with the same soft drink if it wasn't the best? Absolutely the best. So, folks, if you're from New Orleans, you've probably tried it and you probably drink it. But if you haven't, you've been missing something you don't want to miss.
You know, one of Buddy's special guests on his television show was Rhonda Shear, and of course Rhonda is very well known for being a established comedian across the country, and here's a little promo they did about her appearance on Hey Buddy D back in Christmas of 1994.
Stay up and stay tuned.
Join my friend Rhonda Shear and me when we give away Christmas presents to your favorite sports personalities.
I'm so excited, Hap.
It's Buddy.
Whatever.
Of course, you know, one person you could say is the polar opposite of Buddy is Angela Hill, and the two of them spoke with each other back in December of 1994 on her popular television show. But before we roll that part of the tape, let's listen to Sid and Jefferson introduce Buddy by using Sid's magic horn.
Let me tell you, nothing too good for this man. Did you have any idea when this madness started that you would have this phenomenal collection of personalities?
No, I didn't, and they must collect to me because I didn't know any of them before we started. They just start calling in on the show, and I think a number of them, all of them, in fact, they're very creative ideas, and they're very creative in what they say and everything, and so it made it for fun.
So, and you don't always agree with this man?
95% of the times I do.
You do?
Yeah, this is Buddy's right hand. This is the Rush Limbaugh sports talk radio. Angela, it's really a no-brainer. I mean, I'm not anti-Saints in any way, shape, or form. I'd love to see the Saints do well. But in this case, I'm right 95% of the time only because the Saints are a no-brainer. Angela, if you are basing success and being a winner based on monetary success,
It's a goal.
then Tom Benson's a winner. How many automobile dealerships does he have? About 10. Do you know, almost never is any of his automobile dealerships number one? I mean, I could go into another story. In other words, you've got to examine the man. The man has success to a degree, but he never wants to go that extra mile to be number one.
Back in 1993, Ed Daniels hosted a WGNO sports special, which basically served as an update on the Saints season after the Saints were, I believe, 5-2. Here's Ed trying to rib Buddy a little bit about, at the time, Buddy's friend Richie Pettibone was the head coach of the Redskins when they weren't doing that well. And listen to Buddy's comeback to Ed Snide comments.
The free agency market have come up pretty much zip off of last April. They let Bobby Abad go, who I still feel is a more competent overall quarterback than Wade Wilson. They acquired Wade Wilson. They picked up Brad Muster, and so far he's been a major disappointment. So as far as I'm concerned, they 0 for 2 in the free agency market. You could probably get a little argument on the quarterback thing, but again, looked like they had a solid draft, but man, they needed more than just a solid draft. They had to make some hay in the free agency market, and they didn't do it.
Well, buddy, you know, it could be worse. You could be a Washington Redskin, you know. Hey.
Yeah, that's right, because if it was the Washington, buddy, don't take it, if it was the Washington Redskins, you'd have 3 Super Bowl rings and 4 trips to the big game instead of 0 for 4, so that's the answer to that.
If you don't know, Buddy's very close friend is Richie Pettibone, the New Orleans native, the Redskin coach. So basically what we just did here was we hit his hot button.
Of course, one of the players Buddy was close to for many, many years was Billy Kilmer. And here's Buddy and Billy talking about the famous 1967 fight that broke out. Saints at the New York Giants in Yankee Stadium. This interview was done in 1995.
Billy, you were on the field that day when it all broke out. I was at Yankee Stadium. I remember Doug Atkins later used to needle Stoneberg, and he said, man, you threw a $10 punch and got $1 million worth of publicity out of it.
He did. But, you know, I knew Greg Larson. I came up with Greg, and he was just a mild mannered. He didn't have any animosity in his whole heart. And I remember that he was looking away, and Tommy ran out of bounds, and then Greg turned around and put his arm up real quick, and it looked like he gave him a forearm shiver, but I think Greg told me later on he was trying to protect himself.
You know, I think the thing that concerns you all, and you told me this, is that a lot of the fans had spilled onto the field, and there were people out there that were sort of had knives and a few other things, and you know, the players said, man, let's get this thing stopped before somebody gets stabbed.
Well, it was the end of the game, and Targeted ran over. I was running off with Targeted, and he said, Billy, get off here, because the guys that coming out of the stands, they all got knives. They'll put a hole in you. Man, I took off for that. I followed Doug right into the dugout.
One thing about...
You know, Buddy D always had some funny comments to make about NFL drafts, and especially Saints draft history. Let's take a look back at 1996 when Buddy did a television interview about how crazy some of those Saints drafts were.
Early Saints drafts could have been an inspiration for the hit movie Dead Man Walking. It would happen to be plural, though, Dead Men Walking, because there was more than one, lots more. First Saints coach Tom Fears told the shoe salesman, Vic Swink, who was posing as the general manager, he wanted the best running back in the draft with that first pick in '67. Swink chose Alabama fullback Les Kelly. Fears, when he got his first look at him, said, he's slow as molasses. I hope I can salvage him as a linebacker. In 1968, with their second pick in the draft, they took a wide receiver, Dave Simakowski from West Texas State. They said he was the next Bob Hayes. Simakowski showed up wearing earrings, beads. His hair was down to the middle of his back. Hey, he was a flower child. He lasted 1 year, then went and lived in some commune, probably in Montana. By '72, Meekum had replaced the shoe salesman Swink with an astronaut. Dick Gardner's the general manager. The first time I saw Dick Gardner, he told me J.D. Roberts was a great coach, and the Saints were only 3 players away from the Super Bowl. Yeah. What he didn't say was the 3 players were God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Those early draft days were in a Lee Circle building in 70. Swink had over 400 names up on the board. Late first round, the Oakland Raiders draft Gerald Lyons. Tom Pierce says, who's Gerald Lyons? He's not on the board. Swink said, hey, if he's not on this board, he can't play. With that, Pierce threw one punch, knocked Swink down. Would have made a better fight than some of the Don King productions. You'd have a better chance of making a big score in that place than if ever gets built in those early Saints drafts. In 73, J.D. Roberts traded the first pick in the entire draft to the coach, and he took a journeyman defensive lineman, Billy Newsome. The coach took Burt Jones. You know the history. In 74, first round, the Saints took Ohio State linebacker Rick Middleton. He wasn't even the best linebacker at Ohio State. There was a guy named Randy Gradishaw. I guarantee you, the founder of Saturday Night Live probably got his idea for the show from those early Saints drafts.
Well, back in 1996, in October, Jim Mora resigned as Saints head coach, and WWL television interview reporter Dennis Waltering did some of the feature stories on Jim Mora's resignation, but they also did an interview with Buddy D, and along with Buddy, you hear the voice of interviewer Joel Thomas.
Fans love to put in their 2 cents after the games, and no better place to find that than Buddy Diliberto's show on WWL Radio. Joel Thomas is live at Cuco's on Veterans side of tonight's second guest show. Joel?
Well, Dennis, as you said, when it comes to Saints fans and Coach Mora, there's always been heated debate. And if you want to get close to the flames of the debate, close enough to sweat, actually, you talk to Buddy D. Buddy, you've been talking to fans today. What are you hearing from them?
I think some fans are glad it happened because they knew it was going to happen at the end of the season. Others had compassion because they felt that Mora had done, at least in the initial years, a creditable job, and they felt compassion for anybody that gets in a situation where he feels that he has to step down.
Of course, Buddy did do many commercials in his New Orleans career, and here's a real funny one from 1998. Willie Rope and Billy Joe Hobart of the Saints doing a radio phone spot pretending to get back at Buddy D by having their own talk show.
We need our own talk show.
I can see it now.
And our first guest has to be interviewing the Willie and Billy Show. Today,
with the pros in the know. Radio 4 presents The Willie and Billy Show.
Today,
Buddy D's our special guest.
let's give Buddy D a taste of the pros. Take him, Willie. Oh, and here's a pro pass. For Buddy D.
Hey, did you guys beat me?
Nah.
And Buddy and Billy Kilmer get caught up back in December of 2001 for this halftime interview when the Saints played the Washington Redskins.
Billy, from an allegiance standpoint, who are you pulling for tonight? Well, I can't. I'd like to see the Saints win tonight. And, you know, I think they got the better team, really, but they've made so many mistakes, you know, later on, because they started off very well. But, you know, that's been their history all this season. You know, they look real good at times and then real bad other times. And, you know, you can't turn the ball over this much and win in this league.
The most consistent thing about them all year has been inconsistency, and that's a fact.
Yeah, and you know, and last year they won. And that's why they won so much and got in the playoffs, because they didn't make these mistakes in Philly. I don't know the reason for it, but that's the reason that they're going to be 8-8 or 9-7.
Billy, from a standpoint of the crowd tonight, you know, from a game that has no playoff implications like this, man, I tell you, I know around the league right now, there's a lot of places got new stadiums and everything, but when that team's out of the race, you know, you have a tremendous amount of no-shows. But New Orleans, it looks like many of them came.
Well, you know, it's amazing. They're sold out this week, and I know they're sold out next week. And it reminds me of the early days when we played here. And the fans were so enthusiastic. You know, we only won 3 games our initial year, but that last home game, it was sold up at Tulane Stadium. You know, at least we won that game.
Well, I tell you what, they sure missed the pageantry of Tulane Stadium because between Al Hurd and the pigeons flying up and everything else, Billy, you know, you're in the Saints Hall of Fame. Do you think you'll ever end up in the Redskins Hall of Fame?
Well, I am in the Redskins.
Oh, are you? Okay, yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they put me on the stadium a long time ago, so I got there.
Billy, I love the story and memory story about when you finally left the Saints, why you left that. That was a John Newton deal, and you thought it was a bad deal because you were going to sit behind Sonny Jurgensen, but George Allen talked you into it with a contract.
Well, you know, it really wasn't a contract, but it was his enthusiasm, the way he approached the game, and he said, Billy, you're going to be part of this thing, and we're going to have a winner here. And I never really heard any. I've been in the league 10 years, and I never heard anybody talk like that. So I said, well, I'm going to stick it out for a year and see, how it's going to go. And, Sonny Jurgensen gets hurt, and I get a chance to play, and then I start winning. And it was hard for, him to replace me with Sonny because, Sonny's a Hall of Famer. He's the best pure passer that's ever been in football. And but we got along real good. The only thing, we didn't want to break the team up because we had a winning combination there. And whoever was on the field, the other guy helped, and that was it.
And you all went to the Super Bowl, of course, played that unbeaten Miami team, the only team in history that's gone through a perfect season.
Well, that's true. And, we went into that game as a 2.5-point favorite because how we destroyed the Cowboys on New Year's Eve in 1972. And, we had a lot of confidence going into that game. But offensively, that no-name defense really stuck it to us. They changed their whole pattern, and, they deserved to win.
It's halftime with the Washington Redskins leading the New Orleans Saints 13-10. This is the New Orleans Saints Radio Network. We'll be back with our halftime guest, Billy Kilmer, after this.